Hey guys, I'm Azra, and in this Lord of the Rings Rise to War video, I'm going to show you Khamul's Respect 5 build, the so-called cavalry build. Before we get to the troop composition, let me quickly go over the gear I have right now. I have a cutlass with melee might. If you want to really min-max this, the next step would be to get yourself a reckoning with Might of Soldiers as his best and slot golden weapon for this build. And then when it comes to his golden armor pieces, you don't have a lot to choose from. Superior Hauberk with melee vigor is my purple armor choice, but when it comes to golden gear, you may want to go with Warborn Battleplate, but instead of Resilience of Soldiers, you would probably want to play Fortitude of Soldiers. It is giving you flat damage mitigation against all sources of damage, be it elemental or physical. And another interesting option could be the Massive Breastplate with the special effect called Significant Protection, because with this army composition you will also have around 50% of your army consist of Reapers. Reapers, in comparison to your mounted units, don't have enough defense stats, but with this you also increase their survivability. So these are the two options I would run with: Warborn Battleplate and Massive Breastplate. And then if it comes to your helmet, I think this is already good to go. You have the Horseman's Helm with either Warding as your purple gear, so you can equip Warding, or you just go with Mounted Vigor, but then your Reapers wouldn't benefit from this damage mitigation, while Warding is giving all of your 3 units in your army a chance to gain stun immunity. Then you may also consider to run a full helm with melee vigor. This too is kinda nice, and all of your army benefits by this helmet. But if it comes to golden gear, I think Cask of Pride with Fortitude of Soldiers is the way to go. You don't need anything that is covering madness immunity, because you have that in his Respect 5 kit, which I will also show to you in a moment. And then as his accessory, I think we don't have a lot to choose from. The purple choice would be Drums of Moria with either Haste of Soldiers or Bane of Dwarves. But when it comes to golden gear, you have 2 options. The first one being like Drums of Barad-dûr with either Grudge of Gundabad to boost the damage of your Reapers, or you have a few more options like Might of Soldiers. This too is very nice. Let me max it out. Might of Soldiers and Iron Guard. All those 3 special effects work, but in cases where you need to counter evade, like avoidance, you need the Palantir of Orthanc with Tactical Mark. And I have found myself in a position where I always needed to have this equipped at all times. You never know when you encounter a Gil-galad, and when that happens, it just totally destroys your army. And I can't take that hit against my barracks, so I ended up always equipping this. This just proves how strong the presence of Gil-galad alone is. Anyway, so these are the items I just recommended that I equip here, and let me show the build right now. So a quick run over. Second in command, you just need this. It's boosting your melee damage. Not by a lot, but at least it is something. Then discipline, you definitely need to max it out. More defenses means more damage mitigation against physical damage. And we all know how good side is relying a lot on physical damage. Anticipation, now this is nice to have, because your army will consist of 2 mounted units and Reapers. Reapers are your unit with the lowest defense, and they are the most squishiest unit in your army. But with Anticipation, you increase their survivability, because you have a 75% chance to evade all sources of damage for the next 4 hits. And these are stacks of evade. And correct me if I'm wrong, but even if someone is equipping the Pursuit effect, that doesn't mean that a stack of evade is being consumed. As soon as you start taking hits and you evade those hits with Anticipation, then the stacks get consumed. So even more the reason why Anticipation is great for Reapers. To the top, we just put whatever leftover points we have to these skill points. You first want to start with 2 points into Shadow of the East, just because of a bit of focus damage. Then 1 point into poison damage. It's a damage over time effect that starts on round 1 and lasts all the way to round 10. So it's just a bit, you know, it's just a bit that's counting on every round. Dreadful Presence, we have this because of the side effect. Every 3 rounds, you force the enemy unit, the 3 enemy units, to deal minimum damage, which makes this basically damage mitigation. And then we jump over to his respect 5 tree. Now, this is where it gets interesting. And what I like about this is the defense reduction effect, because the lower defense the enemy units have, the more physical damage you are going to deal against them. And your mounted unit spec, like this build, is doing nothing but physical damage. And with this, you increase your physical damage output, while you also increase your own survivability, because it says 2 allied units get a defense and speed boost by a certain number for 1 round. And if you max this out, you also get plus 15 might. Overall, very nice to have for your army. And then to the bottom we have the Black Rider. This is giving your mounted units a total immunity against madness. Like for the whole of the fight, they can't fall victim to madness, which is insane. And then you have also an additional effect, which is increasing their physical damage output by a certain percentage. It's physical damage, but it can stack up 3 times for your mounted units. I like this a lot. You should at least put 1 point into this because of the madness immunity. It is increasing your survivability by a lot. Then to the top, we have Hamstring. This is going to decrease the defense and speed stat by the enemy units, 2 units, by a certain percentage on every round. So, unlike the Black Easterling, this is activated every other round and it just lasts for 1 round. Hamstring is lasting until the battle finishes. It is just stacking up. Against 2 targets, this is reducing the defense and speed stat on every round. And what does that mean? Lower defense stat means more physical damage you deal with your army. And that's it. Like, this is the cavalry build, the physical damage build with his respect 5 title. And the army composition for this build is pretty straightforward. You almost always want to have around 50% Reapers in your army composition. That translates to 3,500 Reapers if you are level 50 like me right now. But you can always feel free to have a bit less of these units. It's really coming down to your conscription time. Like, if you want to lift the burden of your conscription time, feel free to, like, you could also do this, you know, like minimize everything and then have an equal number of these units. That works too. Or if you have a lot of Reapers in your army, how about reducing your mounted units to 750 and then have even more Reapers in your army? This too can work. It's coming down to your conscription. Let's also round this up by analyzing the battle reports. So here we are fighting against the Dwalin. Let's check out the gear. So nothing out of the ordinary. These are the items I recommended to you at the start of this video. Special effects wise, Reapers have Heartseeker with follow-up, and then Dragoons with Rupture, and then we have Fallen with light armor. Okay, let's check out the Dwalin. He has a mono stack of Guardians, he has a Battle Axe with Flay, Scalemail with Gallant, Fulham with Melee Vigor, Hiflane with Mend, and build-wise this looks decent. I can't complain about this. Does he have the random debuff removal? Yes, he has it. And Guardians with Solid Metal. Alright, so overall a decent Dwalin. This is the outcome. Quite surprising, isn't it? You couldn't have achieved this with his elemental damage build, like the Respect 3 build with Alchemists. Can't cut through the maxed out effect of Warrior of Lonely Mountain. So if this Dwalin wanted to counter us, he could have just maxed out Warrior of Lonely Mountain, and his elemental build couldn't have achieved this result. Let's go into the snapshot page. We have done 333k damage, interesting, versus 170k-ish damage. And in the detailed view, we see that Reapers have done almost 200k damage. So this is how strong Reapers are, especially in Tactics Evolved with follow-up. But I have heard that the game devs will remove that special effect for every future Tactics Evolved campaign, since it was too strong. Now here is a fight against Gandalf the Grey player. Let's check out the gear. As you see, everything stays the same, nothing has changed. Gandalf the Grey has a Milkwood Bow with ranged might, his Superior Hauberk with fire protection, Trapper's Hood with Hysteria, and then Wizard's Fireworks with ranged might. So he is going all in with burst damage. You know, 3 ranged units, and let me guess, it's Dispersion. Yes, it is. Rangers of the North with Haven. That is quite nice in Tactics Evolved for Gandalf the Grey, because he has a healing effect that could potentially proc Haven. Sharpshooters with Dispersion. This overall is a decent Gandalf build. But still, this is the power of Khamul's Cavalry build, his Respect 5 build with Reapers. And let's check out the snapshot page. We have done around 230k-ish damage versus 177k damage. Alright, and in the detailed view, once more you see Reapers dealing the biggest chunk of our damage. Here is a fight against the T2 Aragorn, and I was surprised by this outcome. I didn't expect this. Khamul still has the same gear and the same build, and this Aragorn has these items over here: Battle Axe with Flay, Superior Hauberk with Fire Protection, Full Helm with Melee Vigor, and Evenstar, his Respect 10 item, Undomiel. So, if we check out his build, everything is revolving around Aragorn dealing damage by himself. So he is dealing high commander damage. And this commander has these units over here: Guard of the Tower with Divide and Conquer. Very tanky. Cataphracts with Remedy. Whenever they get a healing, they also deal a bit of damage. Alright, I don't see how they can benefit by that special effect for this fight, but maybe he used these units for his Gandalf the Grey with the Pipe or any other healing commander. And then Guardians with Heavy Shield. This makes lots of sense, but I have seen that this special effect was removed for any future Tactics Evolved campaigns. So Guardians don't have access to this special effect any longer. Anyway, this is the outcome. You see that we have done almost 270k damage versus around 230k damage. In the detailed view, once more Reapers did the biggest amount of our damage, 150k. Now here is a Theoden fight. Our Khamul still stays the same. Let's check out the Theoden. He has a Cutlass with Melee Might, Scout's Mail with Shroud, Horseman's Helm with Resolve, and Tiflane with Mend. If I check out the build, there is a few things I would correct. Like, instead of spending 5 points into Vow Protection, I would spend those 5 points into Chaotic Retreat to reduce the defensive stat of the enemy units. That means you are going to deal more damage with your units that deal physical damage. And I think put at least 1 point into Mounted Combat to have a chance to attack additionally with his mounted units. Because whenever that procs, you get definitely a proc for your Rohirrim. So that way you can stack this even faster. I like the Mounted Combat a lot, which is why I do this. Like, I would take the 7 points out of Riding Excellence, put those points into Mounted Combat, and have these points reinvest into Chaotic Retreat. But I'm fine with the 1 point into Cleave. That way you have a lot of speed stat working in favor for your Cleave early on. That makes sense. Let's jump over to his mounted units. Bree Riders with Parry. Parry is quite a strong ability in Tactics Evolved. Cataphracts with Remedy. That makes sense because he has some steady healing with Aeored Leader. And then Cavaliers with Rupture. But we see that in this case he decided to go with 2 units. I think 3 units would have been much better. So this fight wasn't really the fairest fight. There was a lot that could have been changed. But still, I just wanted to show you the outcome of this fight. And in the snapshot page we see we have done almost 360k damage versus around 180k-ish damage. Once more, Reapers have done around 150k-ish damage. Alright, I'm going to show you 2 more reports revolving around Gil-galad. So here is the first report. We are fighting against this player. He has Elven White Knife with Might of Elves, Hunter Skin with Ranged Vigor, High Elf's Helmet with Iron Wavering, Harp of Lothlorien with Elf Strength. If I take a look at the build, this is quite decent. Make sure you always have 1 point into Icicle, because this is a stun against 2 units. Like, it's going to stun for 100% 2 units every 3 rounds. This, like, 1 point spent into this is already enough return of investment with the stun. Alright, his units have Sentinels with Dispersion, then Bow Knights with Dispersion as well, and Heralds with Light Armor. Cool. Then, if we take a look into the snapshot page, we have done almost 220k damage versus 250k damage. Okay, you see Reapers are dealing the biggest chunk of our damage. But it was a quite strong matchup. He is stunning us every 3 rounds. That's just unfortunate. we haven't equipped anything that is protecting us from stun. But yeah, this just proves how strong Gil-galad can be in the right hands with the right build. And we have already taken care of countering the evade. Unfortunately, this is as far as we go. If you don't have tactical mark, you will just get wiped out completely and have an even worse outcome than this. But I think Khamul achieving this result against the Gil-galad is still okay. Here is another fight against Gil-galad. This is my last report, and I wanted to show you what can happen if a Gil-galad isn't speccing Icicle. Like, Icicle is the stun, and in this case he didn't spec Icicle. He has these items: Mirkwood Bow with Elf Strength, High Elf Hauberk with Resistance, Trapper's Hood with Hysteria, Harp of Lothlorien with Elf's Strength, and Sentinels with Rise Up, then Bow Knights with Dispersion, Keepers with Heartseeker. This is the follow-up. And you see, like Khamul, everything stays the same, nothing has changed. We have done this in the snapshot page, around 250k-ish damage versus around 100k damage. So you see, you can win fights against Gil-galad. It's also kind of based on RNG, like which targets did Gil-galad stun with Icicle, and also which targets were affected by your hamstring effect, like hamstring and the Black Easterling. You definitely want to have this work against the weakest targets, like in this case Keepers and Sentinels, because they deal the biggest amount of damage. But if they get affected with those debuffs, you can get rid of them much quicker. And there you go. This is Khamul's Respect 5 build, revolving around Reapers and mounted units. If you ask me, this build surprised me a lot. It may be heavily dependent on gear, but once you have that gear and you have no T3 commander unlocked up until now, maybe you don't even have a Gothmog, a Mouth of Sauron, like the meta commanders, you can still survive in the meta with this Khamul. And this was what surprised me. If you enjoyed this one, like the video, share the video. This is how you can help me push against the YouTube algorithm. That being said, I see you guys next time.